Welcome to the first official episode of 2021 of the Divorce Dad Playbook podcast. I'm Dan Levy.
I'm Scott Levy.
And we have a lot, Scott, that we are going to be doing this year. Announcements coming up. The amount of it's one of those things where this kind of plays into our topic of like, there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes of things that, I always joke around that when we were younger, I always hated playing Rummy Cub with you because you would keep I actually used this in an interview one time. This like that you would keep all your tiles and then you would put everything out at once so we couldn't play your tiles and then the next round you'd win. And it was ridiculous. And you taught a lesson. It was
brilliant. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, like keep everything. Don't closed. Let anybody know until you're ready to let them know what you have, and then just bam.
So to me, Rummy Cub was a game of math and numbers, which is why I liked it so much. But it's very interesting. We played together the same game, how you interpreted what I was doing versus how I interpreted what I was doing. I just wanted to win.
Right. But you figured out the best way to win was to keep your information in and play on everyone else's. Set yourself up so that you could, which is and that's sort of our personalities. It's the exact opposite of how I am. I'm like, hey, I don't care if you want to know. I don't have any skeletons in my closet because I just threw them all on the floor. Who wants a bone? Who wants a femur? Anybody? Clavicle? Let's get to the song. You know what this song is? This is one of my favorite songs of 2020. It actually got me through sometimes. Listen to this coming up. It's a band called Best Coast. Do you know Best Coast? They're on my Spotify most played list.
Share that with our listeners.
How many times I dropped my kids off, and then this song came on the radio, and this part came on, and it really helped me. So, I mean, I was just talking about something a little different, but
right. Well, it's your interpretation, just like the way you interpreted how I was playing Rummy Cub. And I think the point of that is interesting because towards the end of the year, I had just on a whim, because I was feeling this way, I had put a post out there that got a lot of engagement. You know the post that I'm talking about, which was the post that, can I say it or do you want me to wait?
No, you can say it, but before you say it, I actually want to say something to you that you don't know. Is you told me this when I was either in high school or like in college when I first started at Rutgers, and I was frustrated and I got really mad at you because like I was dealing with something that I was annoyed at. And then you threw this sort of like Zen thing at me and I'm like, no, man, but it stayed with me for the last 20, 30 years. And then I didn't even tell you that when you posted it the other day.
No, you didn't. And it's good to know. It makes me feel better as an older brother and as a dad that maybe some of the things that people get annoyed at when I say them actually sink in some way and help them through time.
Tell the people what they've won.
Well, so I posted, and I really believe this because I run into this a lot myself, is the post was, you never know what anyone else has got going on. And it's so true. I think for me, that rings really true. I think, and you know this, and you say it a lot too, as we've gone through, some of these podcasts and just in our lives so long together, that I think maybe I make things look kind of easy. They're not. It's not easy for me, and I don't think it's easy for anyone out there really. No. But for some reason, it appears that it's easy for me, and I don't really know what I do to make it look easy. But I always think that when people are saying like, "Oh, you're so good, you're so lucky, you're so what," and I always think that I was like, "Wow, you never know what anyone else has got going on."
Right. To that point, there's two things. I'm going to peel back the radio curtain for a minute. I can't believe I've been doing this, but it's funny. So like, I don't have a radio show anymore. This, we're very honest, right? So we're on, video here. So even if people are just listening, you can go on YouTube and watch it. But like, let's just say I had like my notes for what I was going to talk about. And let's say we were talking up for, I was a sports person. So we were talking about the 76ers. And I would say, um, man, the Sixers are playing really well. Joel Embiid is averaging what, 14 rebounds a game and 26 points. And I would throw that out and like you add that little like what? Like it's top of my head. Meanwhile, I literally just read it because I was prepared to talk about that. The hardest thing to do is to be prepared, but come off as like you just knew it. Because people are like, wow, this guy really knows a lot. Well, yes, I know a lot. I didn't make up that I knew that those are correct numbers. Well, I don't know if they are now, but you know what I mean? In this scenario.
Right.
But I presented it as if like, because it was off the top of my head because 5 seconds earlier I had read it. I just had to remember, or 10 minutes earlier, I just had to remember what I read. That's what you do. And I think that's what people don't see, which is a good thing, is that you work really, really hard. You work an insane amount of hours. You do basically 2 full-time, 3 full-time jobs and parent and all this other stuff. But you will not let anyone else see a crack. You will not let anyone else know how much work you've done. So they look at it and be like, man, you're really doing great. You must be, and you're inside being like, yeah, I'm like this because of all the work I do. But
Yeah,
that's
that's
on
really
purpose.
interesting.
Maybe you don't realize you're doing it.
I don't know. I mean, if you say it's on purpose, then maybe it's on purpose. I don't know that that's on purpose. And I think as I look back, I should say, as we're in a new year, and I think about that, um, yeah, wow. I, I, I- I'm not that way on the inside.
And
Like
honestly,
it is hard, man. I mean, I don't. I say this to a handful of people, um, and I guess now I'm about to say it to a lot more people
bucket
that
full at least.
a bucket full, that I like end my day sometimes, and I'll be sitting there in like in bed, just like thinking back upon my day, and I'll be like, fooled them again, made it through another day where everyone thought I knew what I was doing. And
Yeah.
I don't feel like I knew anything. I don't know how I even made it through the day. Like I had to probably make 50 decisions or more in a day. I have no idea how I made them. And if anyone could like put a little like microscope or
Microchip.
something in my ear and
Yeah.
like look inside my head and how like my head's like it's constantly moving
They have to
and
blow
running.
the dust out first.
Thank you. I don't. It's always amazing, and I know you've obviously known me your entire life.
Seen through that the entire time. Yes, I have. I am the one who says that Scott Levy is the one person who could sell ice to an Eskimo, but doesn't know what ice is made of.
That might be pretty accurate.
Oh wait, it's just frozen water?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you
I
don't and here's the reason why. And now you're in a position where you have to make decisions, stuff you should have the proper information for that. You don't I think it's a little dangerous. I don't think that you're saying this, but if you
no,
were saying this, like
I'm
you're
not
making
saying it.
uninformed decisions, no, but
No, no,
that's how it
I'm not
sounded. You're
saying
like,
that. No, what I'm simply saying is that clearly I have lots of experience and I've been through a lot of uh, different situations that have gained me enough experience to make decisions like that. But I think to myself, like, you're not the only one that says that. And I think a lot of people can relate to this, hopefully, where it's like, I feel like every day I've got a lot of people fooled that I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I actually don't really know if I know what I'm talking about, but apparently I do.
well, all right. So there's a lot to unpack with that. First is as a parent, I can't believe I'm the one giving you advice. This is awesome. 2021 is the best. I if you're the parent, you can never let those cracks get through. You can never let your kids see you break down. Now, in the last year I have, and maybe that's not the greatest thing, but I do think letting them in to a little bit else was going on in my life was important for them, to not shut them out. I'm not saying shut your kids out from what you're feeling, but if it's getting to you, don't take it out on them. Don't put it on them. If you're having a relationship issue or a work issue, as you said, you always talk about, the first thing when Jack pulled on your leg and said, do you need help? That was your moment. Not everyone gets that moment,
Yeah.
and so hopefully they listen to what you say, and it's on the front page. That's basically the genesis of this whole site. If people go to divorcedadplaybook.com, you can read your letter basically that explains that whole story. We don't have to do it here, but I think you can't let people see that you're not prepared. And that goes back to the thing with me and like reading the stuff. Like, I used to wake up, my show started at 7 in the morning. I woke up at 4 to start researching. And then I would at 6:30 go up and for 20 minutes get my kids. I got 2 kids under the age of 10. I got them dressed, I got their teeth brushed, I got them downstairs, and I had breakfast on the table and their lunches packed between 6:30 and 6:50. And then I went back and did prep for my show, and the show started at 7 o'clock. No one who listened to my show until I mentioned that knew that was the frenetic half hour I had right before, because I sat down and it was lights on, let's go. And that's where I think if you can do that and not let people see the behind, sometimes you have to let them in. I learned that I had to let people in because I pushed too many people away. I wasn't sharing the stuff I needed to share with you guys.
Right. Well, yeah, I think I think that's interesting. I think that there's certainly maybe not even a fine line. I think that there's a line where you have to let people in. It was really, I find myself, and I'd be curious. Like, we obviously share a lot on the show. I'd be curious to hear from other people if they feel this way, because of course we're here for moms and dads. And I caught myself the other day. Um, I was watching. I know you've watched the show. I'm rewatching it again for the third time. The Good Wife, which is
You're
on.
watching The Good Wife for the 3rd time.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. The show is so good. It's,
It's a
it's
good
like
show.
like
I'm
it's
not.
it's a
It's a
it's a
good
really
show,
good
but
show.
3rd time.
So
You
in
love
any
these
case,
CBS shows. How I Met Your Mother, The Good Wife. You're gonna go
CBS.
watch
I
what
worked
is
for
it? Angels
CBS.
in the
Like
Outfield? No, what was it?
I
Not
worked for
Angels.
CBS when I moved to New York. Maybe it was like just part of
What
the
was that
deal.
show? The
So
Angels show that
so
they used to have on there.
I don't know. In any case,
God,
long
I'm gonna
story
look it up.
short of The Good Wife, I was watching an episode where, and this was in season 1, where she had just come back to work
Touched by an Angel.
and
Sorry.
gotcha. She had just come back to work, and her husband was getting out of prison or whatever for something he did politically, or not politically, whatever, it doesn't matter. And she was sitting there at this table in her apartment, and she had like bills everywhere, and she was clearly like didn't know what the money situation was and all that, and she just started crying.
Yeah.
And like as she was crying, I was like watching this, and I started tearing. And then her kid walks in and is like, "Mom, what's wrong?" And so I sort of was like watching to see, and I've seen the show a couple times already, but I wanted
Yeah.
to see, at this point I'm like, my mind's in a different place maybe. And and he was like, "Is it about dad? Is it about us?" She's like, "No, no, no, it'll be okay." And the kid, and this is a TV show, but I understand TV emulates life sometimes. I realized it was a TV show, but he just looked at her, and he looked down and saw all these bills in her checkbook out, and like just bills scattered around the desk. And he just said to her, "You're a good mom." And honestly, the floodgates were like opened up, and I was sitting in my room by
That's funny.
myself, like at night watching the show, and I'm like, "Oh my God, she is a good mom. She's trying so hard." And it just really hit me. And I think that, uh, and I don't do it on purpose, and I am an emotional guy, and maybe I don't always show that so much to people, because I feel like I have to be this somewhat pillar of strength for the longest period of time for people that count on me, and my kids especially. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I think that it's okay, and I'd be curious to see people that engage with us and interact with us. I'd love to hear from you
What's
to
the question
see
you're
how you feel.
asking? Are you asking
I'm asking
people
is
if they
do
watch
you
The Good
feel?
Wife? Like, dude.
No, no.
Are you
I'm
a big
asking
Juliana
if
Margulies fan? Scott at
no,
divorcedadplaybook.com.
no, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is for moms or dads, do you feel like it's okay? Because that's the way that I felt about it, like to be able to show your emotion in front of your kids. And that's kind of what you were talking about too. And
Right.
that's what I want to know. I want to know how people feel about that because I think it is okay. I'm very emotional to my kids. I'm
Yeah, me too.
constantly, even though it embarrasses them at this point because they're older, and I kiss them and hug them, and like I'm very affectionate and emotional with them. I want to know how other people feel about that. That's my question.
No, that's a good question, and it's a good place to sort of go to sort of dovetail off of the whole idea of no one knows what you have going on. Because, as I said, you want to protect your children, but as I learned, you need to protect them from the outside world. But maybe the best way to do that sometimes is to let them into your world. Not
Right.
everything. I told the kids I don't want
Right.
them listening to this show. I mean, certainly, and they might at some point, and I'll live with that. Hopefully, it'll be a while. Um, but they are also an extension of you. And so when I see my kids processing information the way that they do, I got in a fight with my oldest the other day, and I'm just saying, like, we have the same brain. Like, I know what you're going to say.
Right.
And no kid
Right.
wants to hear that. No kid wants to
No.
hear from their parent, I
No.
know what you're going to say. But it's funny because I know exactly what was coming next. And it's like playing chess against yourself. So it was the Queen's Gambit. That's what they should have done on that show. They should have had her do the opium or whatever she was smoking and then play chess against herself, not against the ceiling, because that is a difficult game to play.
Right.
But I do want to say this, guy, and I think it's funny that you keep talking about like you're a good mom with a good wife and everything, because as I'm listening to you say this, you described our mother. You are like mom, where she's
Yes.
got a lot of shit that she has to deal with more than other people, but she will never let it affect her with the kids, never let it
Yeah.
affect her with friends. She'll now that might not be the healthiest thing in the world, that she'll internalize it to some extent, and hopefully she has over the years had ways, maybe she goes down and like shoots a hockey puck in the basement. I don't know that she can get some of that out, but that's
I think
exactly
she
how
I
mom
think
is.
actually I think actually she talks to me. She talks to me.
All right.
Um, but I think that's really interesting that you say that because I we all everyone who listens and engages with the show, we all have our pasts. And I also I look upon the things like and I marvel sometimes at how I never understood how mom ha had everything together. Like, I think about that all the time, especially as I become a parent and a divorced dad. Uh, I always thought about how did mom do everything she did where she had 3 kids, she was working, she was always kinda had she wasn't the greatest cook, she admittedly, but she always had dinner ready for us.
Better than she lets. I think she thinks it's funny that she thinks she's not, but I think
I think she does too.
better
She
than
just likes to talk about her grilled cheeses, that she's makes
right.
great grilled cheeses. But we always had meals. Like we always had,
Yeah,
she did a great shake and bake chicken. I love that shake and bake chicken.
right.
That was
And
great.
meatballs are
Uh,
delicious anyway.
yeah, I mean, we always had like a barbecue, whatever. So, but I always marveled
What
about
are
it.
we
I just
doing?
knew, I don't know, but I just knew that she seemed to always have everything put together. So I think that's actually really interesting that I suppose maybe I
Yeah.
am mom's
And
son
and
for
and look,
sure.
I know if my ex is listening, and I know if our parents are listening, that everyone's gonna like laugh in vomitous fashion in this. But you're like mom, and I'm like dad. You need to hold everything together and not let anybody see how difficult it is. And I need every single person to deal with my shit because because I can't deal with it myself. So I need you to deal with it.
Yeah,
That's There's our parents
right.
in a nutshell.
Yikes.
I mean, look, here's the thing. It took me a lot of years to be able to let people in. It's a difficult
Right.
thing to do, and I want to give pat myself on the back, but I do. I want to give myself credit for um for getting to a point now where I can be open and not feel like it's a burden. And that's why I say it somewhat jokingly, where my shit becomes everybody else's shit. It does. You say this to me all the time. And look, that's
No, it does. Yeah.
some of the diagnoses that I have. I am aware of that. And sometimes I know and don't care, by the way. Sometimes I'm aware that we're talking about my shit. I
Well,
just don't
that
care.
right. Well, that's a little bit scary that
No,
that
because
you
I feel
know
like
and
I
don't
it's
care, but
no. In a way that is helpful. If I think something is going to help somebody out there, if I think somebody is going to benefit from my story, then yes, I'm going to tell my story. Does that mean I dominate the conversation sometimes? Probably. I talk faster than you. I talk faster than most people.
I
And
can
so
talk fast. I choose to talk slower and more deliberately because I get my point across better. That's a learned skill. I didn't
I
always
don't
talk
believe
slow.
that to be
I
true.
didn't always talk slow. You can ask my
No,
high
no, no.
school teachers.
That part's a learned skill. I do think because I edit this show, man. And so when I have to take these like long 4-minute things and cut them into 30 seconds or a minute to put on, Instagram or TikTok, um, your pauses are very pregnant. You have like triplets sometimes with the pregnancy of your pauses. I mean, it
It's
is.
deliberate.
I know, but it's a pain in the ass. Get to the point. I need to edit this.
I mean, for editing purposes, maybe it's not so great, but in terms of my thoughtfulness and wanting people to take a listen. I mean, I've done this thing in business, especially for years, and again, this is stuff to share with a lot of you that have challenges with communicating or whatever it may be. I would on purpose repeat what I said twice when it was the meaningful part of the meeting. I would repeat it twice. And eventually some people were really paying attention, would catch on and they say to me, you're kind of repetitive. I was like, thank you. And they're like, well, why are you repetitive? And I'm like, because you're the only one that knew I was repetitive. Everyone else actually listened to the second time I said it
Right.
because they weren't paying attention to it the first time. So if we're here to create this space for all the people that are listening, all the people that are engaging and interacting, and I want people to continue to interact. It was so great towards the end of the year last year. So many people that were reaching out with their own stuff and allowing us to you know use it and learn from it and share it with others. I'll be repetitive sometimes to make sure that people get a good understanding of what we're talking about, get their
No,
point
I love
across.
again, I appreciate that. And it is a learned skill. It's not to say that I haven't done it and I know when to pause. I got to such a point in my show, Scott, that I can sense when you're about to stop talking. And we talked about this the other day where I can sense where you're going to stop talking and I know I can get my point in. What I struggle with you is that in my old positions, I would be able to drive traffic and move it along. Like I'd get the last word in and then I'd be moving it along. But
Right.
because you're the expert and I'm the moron on this show, I feel that I need to then allow you to rebut. And that takes longer than I expected. So sometimes these shows that we're expecting to be like 45 minutes are like an hour and 5 minutes because I'm like, oh yeah, well, he just gave me a 10-minute answer to something I didn't think he was going to say anything at all. That's unique for me because of the dynamic. I was always sort of the play-by-play guy, and the other person was the analyst. So I could drive the traffic. But this
Right.
is a little bit different because it's not me talking about other people; it's me talking about me, and you're trying to help me. I'm that, as I said one time, I'm the avatar for the audience in some respects. But in this case, I think you are because you put that up there for a reason. You don't know, what I don't know the exact wording you said, but you never know what
You
anybody else
never
has going
know
on.
what anyone else got going on. Of course I put up a reason because I was thinking it,
Well,
and I wanted to see if people would react to it, and I was shocked at the amount of not only engagement I received when I posted it, but texts and DMs and just other people saying how right on that is. And I think it's important. It's really important. I think that there are some overarching themes in life, and I think that's one of them. And I think that you need to go through your life understanding as you interact with others, whether it's your kids or coworkers or your partner or whatever, that you have to give people the benefit of the doubt that you just don't know what they've got going on. And I say this a lot in work, that I talk to people who are in sales, especially, that you don't know if the person you're calling had a flat
oh yeah,
tire this morning, or if their cat was sick, or if their kids were screaming, or you have no idea what
Yes.
they're going through. So I think that that's a really good phrase, and I think as we get the year kicked off and we think about it, I just think that we need to be more mindful of what other people may have going on that you're not aware of.
It's funny you say that because in my past experiences, I always used to play the whole analytics thing in sports down the middle a little bit. I believe in all the analytics. Don't get me wrong. I believe that the more statistics you can find out about a person, the better. Um, but I also think, what if they got in a fight with their wife last night and had to sleep on the couch? And you're like, why does this guy have, 2 less miles per hour on his fastball? Yeah, because his shoulders hurt because he was sleeping on a couch. And
Yep.
no, you say no one knows. Gamblers have a way to know that stuff. Like Vegas knows everything for sports. So it's a little more out in the open. But exactly, like, and now with the COVID stuff, like one of the best players in Europe is struggling on his soccer club, and you just get reminded, oh yeah, he had COVID and it's still lingering. So he's out there playing, but he doesn't have his full
Right.
wind. He
Yeah.
can't play a full game yet. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, what's wrong with him? Well, what do you mean what's wrong with him? He's got a freaking pandemic in his body.
Yeah.
And so even that, Scott, even that, like you
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, you had it obviously, but like you know what it is, and this is going to be a weird analogy, and I don't mean to harp on the pandemic stuff, but it's almost like people who have issues, like you were saying with you, that maybe aren't showing all of their cracks. It's like you're asymptomatic. You have it. Everybody has it, but you just aren't showing the signs of it. It's not debilitating you. So my stuff debilitated me for a while. And
Right.
now I have the antibodies, right? I know what I'm doing a little bit more, and I'm not going to allow it to debilitate me. I might get sick every once in a while. I might have a bad day or a bad minute or a bad whatever, but I'm not going to be sitting on that couch until 1 o'clock in the afternoon ever again.
Right. Right.
You
Well,
might be the person who never had it at all. No one ever knew you had it, but you did.
yeah. And I think this goes hand in hand with, just this thought process with how everyone's at the point now where they are, you know, again, it's a new year, new you. People are dieting, people are starting to work out a little bit. They have been sitting around a lot more than ever because
Yeah.
of, COVID and that. I think, and that's right. And I think, you know, I'm no different than that too. I didn't wait until the new year. I started working out again, shortly before the new year, and I was really, really sore. I really was, and that's great. But the point is that nobody knew that I worked out on my own. Nobody knew that I had gotten up early,
Mhm.
went down in my basement, lifted some weights, and I had a really sore chest. And until I just said it now, nobody would have really known except for the few people that I told right afterwards. I was like, oh God, my chest is really sore. So that type of stuff these are simple examples, but I think again, I want to send it out there to, all the people that can relate to what
Yeah.
we're talking about and let them know that there are a lot of people that feel the same way and do understand. And if we could all just be a little bit more patient and a little more understanding of what we don't know people are going through, the world could be a little bit of a better place. I don't mean
I
to be so, you know.
yeah, it was very preachy. I'm going to spin this back to something funny. A couple of years ago, one of my coping skills when I was just angry or frustrated with the world is I would do sometimes pull-ups, but I would do like chin-ups. Like I'd have my hands facing me, and I would go do like 10, and then I'd jump down, and then I'd do 10, and I jumped. Like every time that I just like needed to get aggression out, I would go do that. I did so many chin ups in like a 3 or 4 month span that I was like Popeye. My forearms were like this big. I actually ended up giving myself tendonitis in both elbows. That I could barely lift a gallon of milk without it being excruciating pain. The only person who knew was my ex. Not thrilled because I was doing like 100 and 200 chin ups a day, just like would not stop. Yeah, and I got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore because it was too much, and I literally could barely carry the groceries in. Um, but to go full circle on this part, like you don't let your kids know that. I mean, maybe they did, and we talked about you
Right.
because you like have frozen peas on your elbow one day, and they're like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Right. Right.
But it's one of those
Yeah.
things where like you know what? Sometimes you still have to carry the groceries in.
Right. Well,
Figure it
yeah,
the
it
fuck
can't
out.
it can't stop you. And I think that's the point behind all this, is that a lot of these things can't really stop you. You still have responsibilities, still have duties as a parent, that it can't stop you no matter what. So I think, and I think this is something that, we're working on to for everybody, how we're gonna continue to evolve what we're doing in the site, that we want to, I can share it now and people start to see this very soon, that we
You're
want
sharing it now?
to, well, I'm just previewing
Whatever.
what's happening. That we're going to continue to evolve the site, because we have so many people that are asking us for more, and we have more. We have more. It's on our site, divorcedadplaybook.com. We want this to be open again, as we've said this many times in the past. It's not just for dads. We happen to be divorced dads, so it's the Divorced Dad Playbook because we are divorced dads. This is very much so just as much for moms as it is for dads. The information that's being shared and the experts that we have are great. But I think that stuff like this is a good lesson. This is a good lesson, and I would appreciate it if people would share how they feel about this in a way that we can then share with others, because again, we're building a community, and I want to make sure
You
that the
just
community.
totally backed off on what you wanted to say and didn't say it. That's amazing. See, that's the sales pitchiness of you. You teased that you were going to let people in on something, and I'm like, "What? We're not ready for that." And you're like, "Yeah, we can." And then you said nothing. You literally just said nothing. You said, "We're divorced dads." That's basically what you said. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Well, not amazing enough to get past me, but
I read how
say
you
it
were.
again for the other people who haven't
I,
heard it yet. And maybe if you say it
no, I'm not
again, they'll
saying it
hear it.
twice. I'm not saying that twice. Nope. But I did read the fact. I read into the fact that you were like, not yet. Don't say it yet. You're about to give away our big reveal of what we're going to be launching on the site this year. So I
Well,
backed
no,
a little bit with that.
I'll say this. I think that you can mention the one thing where you mentioned we are divorced dads, and I think where you were going with that, I think that's fine to mention. The thing that I'm working on right now, please don't mention because it's not ready.
I know, but it's coming. So all I'll say then, to sort of end that with less um less detail, but I'll say that thank you everyone for your feedback and engagement. We are building some amazing things that are going to be really valuable. So stay tuned. It's coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on for another half hour. This is a topic that obviously is very important to me. We can stop it whenever we want. This sounds like a natural place to stop, and we can
Yeah, I
continue this
think I
conversation
think
with other
we'll
people, and in
I
the
think we'll
future.
continue it. I would like to stop it with saying, please, again, engage with us on social, email us, DM us, whatever you want to do, and let us know your thoughts about this, and we can take the topic from there. I love bringing up topics that other people are passionate about, because if they're one and the same, that we have experience with it, and other people, it hits home for them too. Those are my favorite types of topics to talk about.
Yeah, and this is one that as we're talking, I'm like, this isn't really a parenting episode, and it's not a dating episode. It's like this is just life. And by the way, we are divorced dads, and but we're humans,
Right.
and that's a lot of what this show is. I mean, I think people have
Yeah.
we've gotten into this lately. Like
Yeah.
everybody's got to live their life.
Yep. So
Before you
just
before you
remember.
finish before you
Yeah.
finish it, real quick, can I just add one tiny thing that I think is important because I've been through this. You cannot make people get better. And so if someone in your life who is struggling with this, who you never know what people have going on, sometimes you do know. You don't know what it is, but you know that they're struggling. Don't make it about you. What can I do to help you? How can I help? Let me know what I can do. Because I can speak to my experience, all I heard was you're uncomfortable around me now. So you're going to try to fix me. And that's not helpful because I know I was messed up and needed help, but like you'd reject that. So all I would say for people out there who are if you see your ex-spouse or current spouse or kids or treat them the same as you have been. Don't walk on eggshells, but keep in your mind that their reaction may not be as it normally is. I'm not saying excuse the behavior because trust me, if I owe anything to my ex, it's that she excused my behavior for probably longer than she ever should have, and God bless her for it. Um, but if you start to treat people differently, they're going to act differently and they're going to reject that. And that's the one little bit of advice is if you do know when you don't always know what people going on, Scott, but now that I know that you're dealing with this stuff, if I come to you and be like, hey, what can I do to help? Can I do more work? I'm babying you. I'm coddling you. That's not what you need.
Right. No, it's
And I just
not.
want to make sure that that's a point. This is something where I feel a little bit of an expertise on, because I went through this that you haven't. That's very important to me. I just wanted to, before we finish, Scott, I just want to make sure that was out there.
Well, I think that I appreciate that because I think for many years it wasn't just your ex, it was lots of us, and it was me too, trying to deal with you and not knowing how to help you. And I think that that's a pertinent thing that we all wanted to help you, but actually ultimately it had to come from you, and you just need to know that
Right.
you had a supportive group of people around you. But I think it's hard on both sides. So I think it was hard for you, and I'm glad that you're able to talk about it like that, that you've come through it, and it was a learning lesson over a long period of time for your ex, for me too, to figure
Yeah.
out how to, because we cared and we just didn't know
Yeah.
how to show it, you know? So I think that was really interesting. Well, yeah. So you never know what anyone else has got going on is definitely a theme. It's always a theme. It happens to be a big one. I would love to start a bit of a movement on that one just to keep it, at the top of mind for, uh, for lots of people, because I think that this rings true, like you said, not just for divorced parents, but just people in general. You never know what anyone
Yeah.
else got going on. So on that note, you never know what anyone else has got going on. Kids first.